we are into video 2, and I will say, you know, for 6:20 in the morning, it couldn't be louder here in Philadelphia. I'm surprised. I used to walk the dog super early every morning many years ago, and no one was out. It was as quiet as can be. But you can't, you got to come out at 4:30 in the morning to experience peace these days. Anyway, so as I was saying before, I do wake up every morning as a survivor, and I'm still surviving. There are still things that go on that are overly timed, overly coincidental. It's hard to explain how things are unleashed. It's hard to explain how many people are orchestrated or grew up in a way where they live on purpose, because everyone has a purpose. The problem is they don't know much, they don't know enough about their target to realize that they're not doing the right thing at all. So, anyway, I wake up every morning wondering if these people, and quite a few of whom who actually befriended me in 2008, 9, 10, if they ever think of me or wonder what's going on. Do they ever feel remorse? I would almost say that it's in the realm of when you're in high school or college, you know, or even other ages, but often people go through breakups from a relationship, and one of the people maybe didn't want to break up, so they're wondering if the other person thinks about them. It's kind of in that realm, but that's kind of normalized. What I experienced is not normal. And the people who grow up in orchestrated, specialized communities, they think they're superior. They're like, we can't believe we found someone who doesn't know what we do. It is mentally ill to assume that you're superior when you behave in a way that other people aren't expecting. And to grow up in an orchestrated manner, I consider those people on the extreme side of mental illness. And they try to cause other people to go crazy. They are actually part of harassment teams. I didn't grow up necessarily knowing this. I grew up knowing there were the Teamsters. My mom worked in an old building that was at the Port of Wilmington many years ago. They wound up in a new building. It was Delaware Contractors Association, otherwise known as DCA, which is interesting because there's the DC Airport, and there's also Disneyland of Southern California, Disney California. They go by DCA also. But where she worked, Delaware Contractors Association, wound up with a bomb situation, I guess it was like a dirty bomb or a small bomb going off. It was over the weekend when no one was actually working, but they had to deal with all that. And it was a threat from the Teamsters. So we kind of grew up like being aware of Teamster folks in the union or what have you. I knew they existed, and I figured, you know, people in the contracting world have beef with each other, and, you know, I've heard of tactics where, you know, job sites have been littered with bottles that have urine in them, like clear invisible plastic bottles, and you know, they show up to the site and there's like urine in all these bottles. You know, they're assuming it's urine. If someone opened one and smelled, they would realize, oh. And that's, you know, a form of, I guess, in the contracting world, harassment. And that's, I guess, you know, that's kind of normalized when you have competing contractors, unions, you know, wages, this, that, and the other, people, developers who are fighting each other for having control over land, if you will. Anyway, that seems normal to me, ish. But for a lot of people to pile onto a person and to carry out skits where the person is like, which is me, is like, wait, what? Play, dine, and connect. I think this is a free festival, and then you would just pay for food from the food truck. the Panda Fest was not free. You had to pay for admission. But this is just at this plaza. It's not a major plaza, if you will. It would just, they often have food trucks up here, like 1 or 2 for lunch for the Jefferson folks or anyone in the area. But anyway, so every single day I wake up and my brain goes through this process of all the people who contributed to hurting me and or avoiding me. I have relatives in Florida, and it's like, I thought they might be, you know, at least aware, in the know enough to, you know, be there as an emotional support. Like, this must have been what happened. We've seen stuff like this in Florida. You know, we grew up in Florida. No, the opposite. I am in shock. The wife of a relative who I expect to be better than what he actually demonstrated in his behavior, she just is unavailable. And I'm kind of like, well, technically she's not directly related to me, so I can't expect much. But it's like, I just tried to reach her wondering if she knew what I was experiencing, because it was so bad. My cousin, on the other hand, he was somewhat available. He said things that almost implied he kind of knew what it was, but he would get frustrated and he would hang up the phone. They hang up the phone on people. And it's like, I got the impression that they think they are afraid to be listened to, if you will. As if you're in a movie and your line is tapped. I know people can hear in a different way now, many years later, because I had to be helped invisibly, if you will. But come on, people. That is a wimpy man's way out. He actually hung up the phone. And I'm freaking out all over the place. I've never, you know, I had never bothered anyone. I was someone who was like, okay, well, if these people don't feel like talking, then I'll have to move on and find other people. You know what I mean? So I never bothered anyone. I was never, you know, quote unquote leech or what have you, or I did everything by myself. I've always been independent. And we have people who were friends and a few family members who behaved abhorrently. Unacceptable. Every day I wake up and I'm like, I even got a strange text from the said cousin, which wound up feeling very intimidating because it almost seemed timed with me coming out of Trader Joe's on the last day of, say, like, pandemic assistance. So I had been a yoga instructor and couldn't work, and ultimately wound up getting pandemic assistance here in Philadelphia when I returned at the tail end of the pandemic, because I couldn't find work as a yoga instructor, and I tried. So I'm waiting here. I believe I'm into video number 3. My calculations keep being a little bit off by like 5 or 10 seconds. And it's like, that's weird. When I add the segment times, it should switch into video number 3 at 17:04, 17 minutes and 4 seconds. But yesterday I was off by about 5 seconds. So